Hello everyone, I welcome you to the class of business to business marketing. So, today we will be talking about a new unit which which will cover the marketing strategy for B2B industries, right. So, before we get into the marketing strategy of B2B firms, let us go through a few questions, right. So, let us say what should the companies in the following scenarios should do, right. For example, case 1, if you look at it, the pump manufacturer now wants to sell its products to an oil and gas producing company. So, what should it do and how it should proceed? The second case is similarly a renewable energy product manufacturer who is planning to enter into new areas, right, new areas in the sense new markets, right, where it wants to create new segments and tries to or enter into new where it can make more profit and new revenue earning sources. The third case is a case where a mining manufacturer company wants to enter into fertilizers, which is a new area for the miner. So, in this case what would the mining company do, and if once it gets into fertilizers, how would it market its fertilizers, what would be the strategies for it. So, these are three scenarios which I have brought in for the class, and and you can just think about it. Had you been in this position, what you would have done, how you would have approached to this position, right. So, if you can look at it, all these three are simple examples of B2B firms who are trying to increase their foothold in the market and create more scope of revenue. And all these three points that you can see are mostly long term oriented, and they are for a considerable long period of time, right. So, here any company who wants enters into a new area or tries to develop a new product or a service or anything would think of a substantial period of time to where it can earn more revenue and increase its profitability. So, B2B firms which are not only linked to purely industrial, but they can be software manufacturers, they can be consultants, so many different areas, right. So, all companies have to go through one thing that is very important, that is called strategy. Now, so companies have to develop a strategy in order to survive for long term. They have to develop a strategy. If you do not have a strategy or you have a poor strategy, then there is a very high chance that the company might become obsolete completely. It can get away from the market, get out from the market. Okay. Are there examples? Yes, there are examples of companies which were very big, but then at one point of time they were the leaders, market leaders, and today they were nowhere to be seen, right. So, you had companies like Kodak, there are other companies like, for example, which were doing extremely good, but then they slowly did not do so well in comparison, they started falling, their revenue started falling. So, there are many more examples where you can see that these companies were one Firestone, right. So, there are so many examples where companies can you can see that these companies were at one point of time were the market leaders, but slowly they went out of the market. So, strategy, the word strategy is very important because it helps firms to understand from a long term perspective about their goals, objectives, and how they can accomplish their set objectives. Let us talk about why is it important to have strategies first, and then also before that let us understand how did this word strategy come from. Now, strategy, the word strategy has come from the word strategos. So, strategos is a Greek word which, if you look at it, the origin of this word actually comes from the military, right. So, it is from war. Now, no wonder there is a very popular book, if you ever love to read. So, there is a popular book called Marketing Warfare by Alrise and Jack Trout. Now, this book talks about how companies can have different kinds of strategies, can develop different kinds of strategies in order to grow or survive in the market. Even survival sometimes is a very important question, because for example, recently you had COVID and many companies had to leave, because if you remember there was a very popular statement by Ratan Tata, the head of Tata Sons, and he said this is the time when companies need to survive, right. If you can survive or pass this time, you can survive this time, then growth will automatically come in the future. So, strategy is need not be always for growth, it can sometimes also be for survival. So, how can you develop a strategy? What should companies look into while developing a strategy, and especially we will talk it from the B2B perspective, right, from the industrial perspective. So, as I said, the why is it important to have strategies? If you see, the first and foremost is to achieve the company's objectives. Now, a company wants to, let us say, survive, grow in the market, it wants to create a foothold in the market, maybe it is a new company. Let us take a brilliant case of example of Dell, right. When Dell computers came into the market, at that time they were such a small player that nobody even bothered for it, right. But slowly with time Dell adopted a very good strategy, and they slowly fought against the large players in the market like IBM and all, and in within a few years and in a decade's time they became one of the most successful brands in the world and one of the most successful companies. Their profitability was soaring like anything and they were doing very well. So, to achieve the company's objective, what is the objective of the company? Now, Federal Express, FedEx for what is popularly known as, has a very interesting objective. It says we want to be the best in delivery, right. We want to achieve very high level of satisfaction in terms of our delivery. So, all companies have certain kind of objectives. Tata Steel is a brand to you reckon with, right. What is the major objective of the company is something that is accordingly the strategy will be built. Second point is to cope with today's rapidly changing environment. So, you see, environment is changing very fast. Just imagine 20-25 years back or even 2 decades back, the kind of product you are using, the kind of services you are using, and today the kind of services you are using is completely different, right. 2 decades back you did not have even a mobile phone in your hand, possibly very few people might be having if they had also. Internet was not there almost, it was very less available to people. But now today everything has changed. Today most of the businesses are done online, e-commerce has become a very important thing, right. And technology has completely changed. So, such a rapid change has happened in technology. Today you are talking even about automotive, manless or driverless cars, and you are talking about even very high end technology. So, you are talking about replacing the human with robots. So, technology is also very rapidly changing, and with it the climate, the scientific climate, the political climate, the economic climate, everything is changing very rapidly. So, once if you see some of the countries which were excellent at one point of time doing very the superpowers, today may not be the superpowers anymore. Similarly, in terms of companies, if you see the top companies of the world at one point of time, if you look at the 80s, the company or 90s, the companies which were in the top list of the Fortune 500, today maybe they are not there, right. So, they have completely either been out of the market or they have lost their position. So, how do you cope up with this new change in the technology? One brilliant example I can think about is when the radial steel industry, the tire industry changed and radial tires were coming into place. So, companies which were having a old technology, they were completely out of the market, because now steel belted tires were in demand. So, companies which were not following with the new technology or new trend in the market, they were completely obsolete. Okay. So, the third point is to survive the increasing global competitions. So, as I said, you need to survive, right. So, if let us say you enter into it, survival is not necessarily in your home market, maybe it is in a very new market where you have entered into. Companies like Nestle, companies like these are all of FMCG companies, but you can find examples like Siemens, right, ABB, which entered into these markets like Indian market, and they stayed low for a long period of time, and ultimately with their kind of growth strategies and their kind of quality products and all, they increased their presence and they today have become leaders again in their respective areas. To survive increasing global competition is also a challenge for which you need to develop your strategies accordingly, right. So, what you were doing in the past may not be feasible or may not be practical today, right. The final thing that we will talk about is to ensure optimum utilization of the company's limited resources. As you know, resources are always limited, right. That is what is the definition of economics. So, how to utilize your limited resources to the best way, to the best most effective manner. So, when you are talking about this limited resources, how do you ensure to optimize or optimally utilize this? For example, let us say a company has got a capacity, a plant capacity now which is being used, let us say 60% only. So, what about the remaining 40% of the plant capacity? Would you leave it idle? Would you try to utilize it maybe by producing some other brands? What would you do, right? How would you utilize your capacity? Similarly, if you want to enter into a new market, how would you enter into a new market? Would you go through a strategic, kind of alliance? Would you like to go through a joint venture? How would you go about? How would you utilize your resources? Because resources are always limited, right? For example, let us say a oil drilling company now wants to drill oil in some basin, right? Some, let us say in the Krishna river or the Godavari river basin or the Ganga basin. Now, when you are talking about drilling, now that is a huge investment and you do not know when you will hit oil, right, or gas. Now, in such a situation, it is nearly impossible to understand or know everything. So, companies have to develop a very nice strategy so that the risk is limited. The profit may be also a bit reduced, but at least there is no 100% risk. So, the risk is to be spread or disseminated across many players, right. So, all these things will require different kinds of approaches, different kind of strategies. What strategies are the medical, pharmaceutical industries going through today after COVID? What kind of strategies are the vaccine manufacturers going through? What are they doing? How are they going to survive? So, these are questions which we need to ask. Okay. The question is how to formulate the strategy. Now, we understood that okay, we have to formulate a strategy because without a strategy it is not possible to have a streamlined approach or a very clear cut path, and if you do not have a clear cut path it is almost impossible to hit success. Okay. So, the first question that you are going to ask is what business are we in and why? Now, for example, generally this is a very tricky question, what business are we in? Now, for example, somebody would say that I am in the business of automobiles, right. So, let us say Hero Honda or Hero Motors says that we are in the business of automobiles. So, that would be challenged because if you say automobiles, are you not getting affected by people who are by companies who are manufacturing let us say cycles, right, bicycles, because ultimately this one also helps to travel, this one also helps to travel. So, just imagine even railways for example, is railway not a competitor to the automobiles? So, the question is we need to understand what business are we in. We are in the business of movement or commuting people or taking people from one place to the another, right. So, when you understand this kind of analysis is important to understand that you may not be, you might be looking at your competitor which is very close to you and directly maybe Hero thinks TVS is its competitor or Vespa is its competitor. It could be also possible that the BMC, the Bombay Municipal Corporation, the transport corporation which helps in travelling, right, the buses of Bombay or the metro, right, they can also be they are also your competitors because they also help in people's movement. So, first understanding what business are we in is a very important thing and why are we into this business, how is it good for us, right, understanding that. What are the key issues we face in our business? So, what are the challenges? For example, let us say just I was going through the newspaper article and it was being discussed about the tax rates. Now, certain industries they are facing a tax issue, right, and they are requesting the government, right, to reduce that the tax so that for them so that they can face the global competition, right. Now, one of them being the textile industry. The textile industry always the government is now trying to, Indian government is trying to bring in certain kind of possible measures so that the textile manufacturers can import good amount of good quality of machines and other things from outside. So, all these things are important issues that your business might be facing. For example, your business might be heavily influenced by the currency fluctuation in the market, right, global market. Now, for example, if you are into oil, for example, at this point of time you can see all oil industries are heavily hit due to the Ukraine Russia war, right. and then obviously there is a polarization that is going to happen when several countries are aligning with the some kind of aligning with the US, some the Ukraine, some aligning with the Russian counterpart. So, now the question is, how is your business going to get affected by this? So, if you are into oil business, obviously companies like Indian Oil Corporation, Bharat Petroleum, right, HPCL, they are getting affected. If I say what about the coming issues like new technology, for example, electrical vehicles coming into the market. So, is that affecting my business? Absolutely. If I am Castrol, or let us say if I am somebody, some lubricant manufacturer. Now, if electrical vehicles will be coming into place in a big way, then automatically my business would be hampered. I was a lubricant manufacturer. So, how do I deal with these things, right? And the third point that is to be answered is, how can we best compete? So, what is the best way of competing against this? So, as I said, in marketing warfare, Elrise and Jack Trout, they talked about different kinds of strategies. For example, defensive strategy, offensive strategy, flanking strategy, guerrilla warfare. Now, different kinds of strategies they talk about. Now, how do you hit, how do you stay in the market, how do you survive in the market? Should you try to find out a niche segment, try to find out a separate segment where there is not much of competition and get into that, or try to hit against through volumes of business, or try to create a very premium product and try to be a technology or leader in the market, so that your brand image always is positive and works for you. So, how can we best compete is a question that B2B firms have to at least think very wisely, because they are into a derived demand kind of a situation, right. So, the first question what we said is, what business are we in and why. So, three things that affects is, this question requires managers to focus on high level strategy planning. So, what is your mission, vision and values of the company? So, that will be in a way, it will be helpful for you to understand what businesses are we in, right. So, let us see each one of them. Let us say take a mission statement. So, what it says, a brief statement, typically one or two sentence, which is a small sentence, you can say one or two sentences, that defines why the organization exists, especially what it offers to the customers and clients. Now, let us take example of Tata Steel. So, what it says, Tata Steel's mission is to strengthen India's industrial base through effective utilization of staff and materials. The means envisaged to achieve this are cutting edge technology and high productivity consistent with modern management practices. Now, this is a mission, Tata Steel has written it as a mission statement, and they want to strengthen India's industrial base. So, this is something which is very much aligned to the Tata's brand image also. So, right. So, creating something more for India and creating a strong base for India, right. Similarly, what is a vision statement? Now, it is again a concise statement that defines the mid to long term goals of the organization. So, something like 3 to 5 years or 10 years, right. Again taking Tata Steel's case. So, as a vision statement, what Tata Steel says is to be the global steel industry benchmark for value creation and corporate citizenship, right. So, no wonder Tata Steel is today a global brand, and if you know, they are into several countries, almost 30 countries or more than that. So, what it says, Tata Steel's vision is to be the global steel industry benchmark. Now, so you had some of the greatest companies, right, and Tata Steel is no less than that, it is again a global leader, right. So, it says that through value creation and corporate citizenship, and we want to be the global steel industry benchmark, okay, fine. So, every company needs to have this vision statement also, right. The third is the value. Now, they are very important from a company's point of view, often called the core values. So, the values of a company prescribe the attitude, behavior and character of the organization. Now, for example, if I say Tata's, automatically there is a very positive brand image. If I say some other company, the brand image might be growth oriented, no doubt, but you might not feel that it is a very honest company. I do not want to name any company for that, but when you talk about Tatas, at least I can say that yes, there is, with growth there is also a feeling of goodness, a feeling of honesty, trust, okay. So, which they have built over years, maybe hundreds now. So, it is all more than 100 years now. So, Tata Steel's core values are integrity, excellence, unity, responsibility and pioneering. So, they want to be the leaders in whatever they do. So, with these kind of values, a mission statement and a vision statement, companies can always plan to understand what businesses are you in and why you are into this business, okay. The second question that we had said was, what are the key issues we face? So, to understand this, the best way is to conduct analysis of the company's external situation. So, if you want to know, okay, what situation are we going to face, so you have to look into the external situation, the internal situation of the company. So, internally how we are positioned, externally how we are placed. So, if we can know that, so we can understand. So, one technique that we use in management is SWOT analysis, strength, weakness, opportunity, threat analysis, which is very simple, but it helps to make have a very clear understanding. Now, if you look at external analysis, so what it says, the industry's economics using frameworks such as Michael Porter's 5 forces model. Now, you can understand what industry you are in. For example, today if you see, if you are an Indian, the software industry has been hit little hard, right. Goldman Sachs has very recently announced that the software industry, the IT industry would be adversely affected, right. And no wonders you must be hearing about TCS coming down, although TCS has become the highest brand value in India and displaced HDFC Bank today, as of today. But forget, if you leave that, still you will understand that TCS share prices are coming down, Infosys is decreasing. Now, what is happening? So, Goldman Sachs has said the Federal Reserve now maybe is going to increase the interest rate to cut inflation, right, in the US market, and now that would have a bearing on the purchasing, on the businesses of many companies. So, firms would not have money and they would not like to give orders or place orders to many of the other businesses. So, as a result of that, Indian Indian software market, which is heavily dependent on the US market, would be now affected, slightly affected. So, with that worry, the prices of the share prices are coming down, okay. So, what it says, when you do an external analysis, you have to look into the political, economical, everything, social, the climate, right, technological. So, Porter has a 5 force model which also talks about how you are placed in the market. Suppose you are a particular industry or a particular company. Now, how are you placed? For example, if you look at this Porter's 5 force model, he talks about 5 forces that can affect any business. Now, what are the 5 forces? He talks about threat of new entrants. So, what is the threat of new entrants that can come into the market? So, if you are into a oil and gas exploration business, there is hardly any threat of new entrants, because it is a huge, expensive, very capital intensive business, okay. Then you have bargaining power of the suppliers, the bargaining power of the buyers. So, there is a buyer, there is a supplier, and what is the bargaining power? Now, bargaining power means what is your ability to take a call. Now, for example, your negotiation power will be very high if you are let us say you are making huge purchases every year from a particular for a particular product. Now, if you are making huge purchases, obviously your bargaining power will be high as a buyer. Similarly, if the supplier is a very big supplier, right, and he is supplying certain very niche products, very specialized products, specialized chemicals, specialized components, then there will be not many to manufacture this, right. So, in such a condition, the bargaining power of the supplier will be very high. Then the threat of substitutes. Are there potential substitutes that can come and destroy the market or disrupt the market? Now, possibly, for example, if you look at the auto industry, the auto industry has been hit hard because of especially the electrical vehicles coming in, right. The normal, I am saying the normal auto industry has been hit very hard because of the EV businesses that is coming in, and many such businesses have got affected because of substitutes that have completely replaced existing products. Okay. So, in such a situation, are there some threat of substitutes, which is maybe some research is going on somewhere, some company is. Now, I was reading an article very interesting which has come from the Harvard lab. Now, they have come up with a battery which can get charged in 3 minutes and it can go for very long period of time. Now, that is something very interesting, and this might create a rupture or a disruption again in the market, right, in the same EV sector. So, what kind of substitutes are coming in? The substitute might not be very radical innovations, it can be very incremental innovations, but that can make a change. Rivalry among the existing competitors. So, what kind of intense, what kind of rivalry is there? For example, when you talk about some companies, right, so they are at loggerheads. So, they want to save their market share at the cost of profitability. So, they do not mind giving a profitability, but they want to retain their market share or grow their market share. So, this kind of intense rivalry is always good for the customer, but not good for the industry sometimes, right. So, this external analysis is very important, and then another model that is very popular, right, in the external analysis is this pestle model. Now, pestle model is a model which talks about political, economic, social, legal, environmental and technological, right. So, although PEST, ST, T should have been here, anyway does not matter. So, this model talks about all these different effects that can happen, political changes, for example, if the government is pro certain industries. So, those industries will do well. If the government does not like certain industries, they may increase the tax rate or reduce the tax benefits and all, So, those kind of things can happen. The import duties may increase, so that can affect economic condition. For example, when you have a natural calamity kind of a situation or any situation for that. So, the economic effect or the economic condition of the country or the place changes, right. It becomes people do not have the high purchasing power. So, when they do not have high purchasing power, they try to limit their spending and all. So, as a result, the production cuts down and everything, the industry as a whole gets affected. Similarly, social climate also, the change in the social climate, people maybe are demanding today more western clothes or let us say more western products. So, that might lead to a new kind of demand in the consumer side, and that reflection will show in the industrial products or the B2B products. And then legal, environmental and technological changes. So, all these individually if you see these changes that you can see. Now, technology I have given you several examples, and how industries fare in terms of technological change. So, that is also very important. How do you look at technology? And as you know, there is a very famous saying, when Moore's law, the famous Moore's law, which says that every 18 months the number of transistors will double, right, and even that was proved wrong, right. That did not take 18 months, it doubled in less than 18 months. So, technology is rampantly changing, and the kind of change that is happening in technology with data automation, artificial intelligence, machine learning and working on millions and billions of data points, the kind of interpretations that you can make, develop new products is just stupendous, right. So, all these things, the environmental climate, legal climate also in the country changes with governance and all. So, all these factors will affect the external analysis. So, then you have one more thing which I will say about this is, I will not spend time, the competitiveness, right. Now, how are you placed? For example, if there is you are this company and there are 3 competitors 1, 2, 3. In terms of this product quality, place, price, partnership and all these points, how are you placed? Now, one being a low score, and as the score increases, for example, 10 is a very high score, 1 is a low score, right. So, automatically you can place yourself and understand where are we in terms of the competition, how are we performing in terms of the competition and where we are exactly, right. So, all these things will help you in understanding, right, the market and your own position in the market. So, today we will wind up this lecture here, and I will talk about the internal analysis in the next lecture, and with that I will maybe continue with some other things. So, that is it for the day. So, thank you very much, have a nice time.